Good evening, guys. This is Analysis King. Welcome back to my channel. It's been quite a while actually that I actually posted a video because I've been really busy. I've been extremely busy. I don't even have time for my own self. So it's been a while that I actually post videos, right? And before I start, Happy New Year to every single person around the world, wherever you're watching this video. Happy New Year, and I wish you a very good and a productive New Year, right? So this year, I'm actually going to be posting more videos this year because last year I was extremely busy. So I'm actually going to be putting more content out this year, right? So I'll be really engaging the channel very well this year, right? So today we're going to be talking about directional bias at the chart. I'm actually going to talk about the trade that I took first. The trade that I took on Euro USD, which is this particular trade here. I took Euro USD, and I'm also on GBP card, right? So GBP card, I actually took GBP card around this point. My stop loss was below here, so this was where I took GBP card, and I'm still holding the trade. So my TP is still a little bit far, right? So I'm still holding it's a position trade, so I'm still holding the trade, right? So I'm actually going to just talk about Euro USD, the trade that I took, what I actually saw in the market before I took the trade, right? So let's go to our daily, right? If you look at the chart very closely, if you look at the chart very closely, let's go to our daily, right? So okay, okay, no, before we go to our daily, before we go to our daily, okay, let me remove all this. Let me remove all this. Let me remove all the drawings. So before we go to our daily, let's go to our weekly first. Now, before I took this buy on our weekly, right? Before I took this buy on our weekly, the first thing I actually want to actually saw was, or I actually asked myself was, where are we in the market, right? Are we in the buy side or are we in the sell side? This is one of the things that you actually need to ask yourself before you enter a trade. It is not just enough to enter a trade. You need to understand, where are you in the market? Is it a buy side or is it a sell side? Right? So we can actually see from structure, we can see that we are actually in a buy side, right? Let me so we can see that we are actually in a buy side in the market from structure. You can see that price takes out this high. This was the initial high of the weekly that price took out, right? Now price formed another high. Now this is the other high that price formed, right? Price formed the other high. This has now shown us that we are actually in a buy side on the weekly, right? So this is a weekly time frame. We are actually in a buy side. So all we'll be looking at now is a buying opportunity, right? So now, since I've identified my structure and I've identified my directional bias, which is actually a buy side, right? So from the weekly time frame, then since those two criteria has been met, then I now identified my demand zone. You can see that around this region right here was the overall demand region, right? This region right here, right? So this region right here, prior to this move, right? This region right here that made this huge move right here is the demand region, right? So you always want to see like I actually explained in my previous videos, I've actually explained what supply and actually explained what demand is, right? So demand is a demand region is actually a region where they have numerous amount of buy orders in the market, right? So numerous amount of buy orders in the market, where the institutional money would come back around that zone to pick their buy orders, then go to the desired direction, right? So it's the same thing with a supply region. The supply region is a region where we have limitless amount of sellers around that region, where institutions would come back to that particular region before they now buy and sell, right? So now all I identified here was the supply region. I took from here to this point, right? So from here to this point is my supply region. So once I've identified supply region, I now went back to my daily. Then I went back to my daily, or no, the first thing I did The second thing I did was I now identified the highs and the lows in the market, especially the weekly high and the weekly low, right? Now, I identified this weekly high, right? This was the last week's high. I identified this last week's high and the last week low, right? So I marked it out because I knew that what they always do is that they will always come back to raid the previous week's high or the previous week's low, right? So they actually do that every single time. So I'm actually going to make a video on previous week high and previous week low, right? In our next video, right? So, but what they always do is they will always come back to raid the previous week's high, the previous week's low, the previous the previous week high or the previous week low. You can see that price came back. They didn't raid this particular high here, but they came back to raid the low. You can see that price came back to raid the previous week's low. Now it has been falling, right? Now, what I actually observed was, since we are actually in a buy in a demand region, all I was waiting for, all my mind frame was, I'm actually going to be raiding, or I'm actually going to be looking for them to raid the previous week's high, which was this particular Thursday's high, right? So now let's go back to our daily. Now, what I saw on my daily, right? Daily was a little bit confusing, but I've already known what I was actually looking for. I was actually looking for a buy, right? Since what I saw was, I actually saw this particular structure being taken out. That was the first thing that I saw, right? If you go back to our 4 hour, you will see very clearly. I saw this particular candle being taken out here. When I saw this particular candle here being taken out, I now went to my smaller time frame. Now let's go to our 4 hour. Let's go to our 4 hour. Now you can see what they actually did here. Now they've actually taken out this. You can see now that we have a lot of information here. They've taken out this high. Now they took out this high. They took out this particular high, which was a weekly high. So all I was waiting for is a buying continuation. Now, since we have taken out this particular high, which was my thought process, then all I was now waiting for, I was looking for my demand regions. You can see that this particular region right here was the demand region. I actually labeled this particular region to actually buy the trade on the 4 hour, right? So once I labeled this region, I now scale down to my 1 hour to look for a safer place to actually enter the market, right? I scaled this region out because we can see that structure was in place. Structure was in place from the smaller time frame, and the direction was also in place on the smaller time frame. So I actually scaled down to my 1 hour. I now saw another demand inside a demand region. Remember, you can actually see multiple demands inside a bigger demand, right? Now you can see that price came back into this particular region here. This was the region that I took the trade. If you're actually on my Telegram group, you actually see that this was the place that I highlighted to actually take the Euro USD trade. So once I saw that they've taken out this high, then they created another high. So here was my stop loss, my take profit. My take profit was around this region, right? My take profit around this region. Then my stop loss was below. This was my stop loss. My stop loss was here. My stop loss was here. My entry was definitely here, and this was my TP. Yeah, so this was my TP. My TP was around the previous week, around the previous day's high, which was actually this particular region. Yes, so this was my TP. So once price hit my TP, I was out of the trade. Right. So you can actually see the steps that I took to actually take the trade. Right. First of all, confirmed the direction. Once I saw that the direction from the weekly was actually a buying, we are in a buying bias, right? Once I saw that the direction was actually going for, was supporting the buy side, I knew what I was looking for. I will scale down to my daily, scale down to my 4 hour. I started scaling down to my 1 hour to see confluences and to actually see places where I need to actually enter the market, right? So this was basically what I did. This was my thought process, right? All this is that I did was actually my thought process that I entered this market, right? So, but this is not basically what I just wanted to show you guys what how I took the trade. Right, so I'm actually going to remove this. All right, so what I actually want to talk about today was a price direction. I actually want to talk about price direction in the market. right? The first thing you need to understand about price direction is, the first thing you need to understand about price direction is structure. That's the first thing you want to understand. You want to understand structure. I preach about structure every single time, right? I preach about structure every single time, because I know that ultimately the whole market talks about structure, liquidity and structure. If liquidity is not in place in the market will not move, right? Liquidity talks about money. It talks about the volume of money that is actually pumped in the market. This is why the market moves, because of liquidity, right? And also, you need to understand structure. Once structure is in place, or once you understand structure, you've definitely gotten 50% of what the market is talking about, because structure is actually key, right? Now, since you've actually identified, or we've actually identified about structure, the next thing that I actually wanted to actually see was, I want to actually see the highs and the lows in the market. Now, this was the high and the low of the day. This was the high of the day. This was the high of Thursday, and this was the high of Friday. This was the high of Thursday, and this was the high of Thursday, and this was the low of Thursday. Right? So this is basically what I actually do every single day before I take any trade. I mark out the high and I mark out the low of the previous day, because the high and the low of the previous day are the points where the most liquidity are. You need to understand the highs and the lows in the market. Once you understand the highs and the lows in the market, you will know exactly what you're looking for, right? The first thing you want to identify is, you want to identify the direction. Since you've actually identified your direction, then the next thing you want to identify is your structure. Once structure is in place, once the direction is in place, then you look for either your supply or your demand regions, right? In this particular case, all I was looking for was a buy. Right, so all I was looking for was a buy. I knew that I was actually going to get a buy inside this daily candle, right? I knew I was going to get all the information inside this daily candle. You can see that it was inside this particular daily candle that we had a demand region, right? Because we've actually stated, or actually seen from the higher time frame, that we are actually in a bullish market. We've actually seen that from the higher time frame, we are actually in a bullish market. That's the base. That's what you want to see. Once you know that you are in a bullish market, the only thing you actually want to see is your the only thing you actually want to see is the only thing you actually want to do is to pick where to actually buy in the market, right? So now I identified the high and the low in the market. This was the reason why I actually took the trade, right? I identified this particular daily high and the daily low, including the weekly high and the weekly low, to actually take the trade, right? So once price gets to my daily high, I was out of the market, right? Now the next day, right, which will be next week, what I will do now is I will actually identify the high and the low in the market, right? So we're actually going to be doing this analysis together, right? Now, we've actually established that we are actually in a bullish market, right? So all we'll be looking out for is a buying opportunity, right? So now we identify the high, we identify the high, we identify the low in the market. Now, remember that this particular region right here, right? Remember that this particular region right here, you have no business with this candle. All you are looking for is this particular candle here, this bullish candle. This bullish candle is your daily range, right? This bullish candle is your daily range. This is where all the activity will actually take place, right? To take out the previous day's high, right? This will be where all the activity will take place to take out your previous day's high, right? So your daily range, you want to identify your daily range, right? Once you've actually identified your daily range, which is your high and the low in the market, inside this daily range is where you will now look for your demand regions, right? To actually buy the market or to actually buy the trade. Now we can see that price has taken out towards this high, right? Remember, we are buying. Price has taken out towards this high, Price took out Wednesday's high, right? And price has taken out previous day's high, right? Now we can see that price even closed above the previous day's highs, right? Price closed above the previous day's high. Price closed above this, right? Price also closed above this. Now you can see that price closed above this region, taking out liquidity, right? Price has taken out liquidity above this region. So all you'll be looking out for now is a buying opportunity, because we have cleared the sellers that were here. We have cleared all the market orders that were here. Now you can see this huge bullish candle momentum right to the upside, right? So all your activity now will be inside this daily range. All the activity will be inside this daily range. Now let's go to our 4-hour. Now you can actually see from your 4-hour that we can see the huge bullish momentum on the 4-hour. Now let's remove this. You can see the bullish momentum on the 4-hour. You can see that price was rejecting the high, and this was the low of the day, right? This was the high of Friday. This was the high of Friday, and this was actually the low of Friday. So all your activity, all you'll be looking out for now around this region is a demand zone, right? All you'll be looking out for is a demand zone to take out this particular high, because we've already established the fact that we are in a bullish market. So now let's identify our demand zone. This is our demand zone here, right? This is our demand zone. The last bullish or the last bearish candle before this huge rise is our demand zone, right? So all my trading, right? All my trading would be inside this particular region here. Inside this particular region here will be my zone. I will be looking for a buying opportunity, right? To take out this particular high, because we are actually in a bullish market, right? So now let's go to our 1-hour. Going to our 1-hour, then you can now scale down to your 1-hour to now look for your clear demand zone, right? So all I will be looking out for on my 1-hour is this region here, right? So let me remove this for our demand zone, right? So all this is my 1-hour region. This is where I'll be looking for to buy the trade, right? This is where I'll be looking for to buy the trade. This particular region is where I'll be looking for to buy the trade, right? So I can actually go down or scale down to my lower time frame to actually refine this particular demand zone to give me a very good region to buy for and to set a very good stop loss. So this is basically how to actually identify your direction in the market. You first of all, you actually want to see your structure first from the higher time frame. Once you've identified your structure on your higher time frame, you now want to identify your demand or your supply zone. If you've actually gotten your demand or your supply zone, the next thing you actually want to identify, if you've the next thing you now want to identify, once you've gotten those things, right? The next thing you want to identify now is your demand zone, right? Your demand zone or your supply zone. Then your first thing, the third thing, you want to go to your daily, right? You go to your daily, you identify your weekly range, which you actually did. You identify your weekly range, right? This, which we actually did here, right? Once we've identified the weekly range, once we identify the weekly range, right? Once you identify the weekly range, then you now scale down to your 4-hour to look for your demand zone inside that weekly range, right? So this is how to identify or to actually get your directional bias in the market. I hope you guys actually enjoyed the video. If you actually enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, right? Subscribe to the channel to get more content from me when I upload the video. Right? If you're new to the channel, subscribe to the video. Old subscribers, I want to thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. And if you want to join my Telegram group, the link will be in the description below. If you want to ask for my mentorship or my Signal group, everything will be in the link in the description below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers and God bless.